Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Backlog Banter. My name is Tucker Hazell, and this is Dev Dive, a show where I get to talk to game developers about their games. And today, I have an interesting and very special guest, Miss Clara Reeves, the CEO of Hipster Whale, the development team behind Crossy Road, which is currently within its 10th anniversary. Our plans for doing this kind of got pushed a little bit out of 2024, but hey, we're still doing it, and you guys will get to learn a little bit about the team behind one of the games that has been around for 10 years and has been so popular for so long. Clara, thank you very much for joining me. I feel like we're going to have a pretty interesting conversation. You saw the list of my questions. You think this is going to go well, you think?
Yeah. We'll make mistakes. It'll be great.
Perfect, yeah. Well, then, of course, those will be edited in post, so they won't know we made mistakes.
You tell me, yeah.
But given that you are a CEO as opposed to the developer of the game, which is usually the kind of people that I'm talking to on this, I've kind of phrased and searched my questions a little bit differently this time around, but still in the game sphere, so I think we're going to be able to cover some interesting topics. But I do want to know a little bit about your history in the games industry. As a CEO of the company, what did you do before you ended up at Hipster Whale? And now, I guess, of course, we'll get to what you do now, but what led you up to that?
Yeah. I at no point thought I want to be a games CEO. That wasn't something that even entered my mind. I just wanted to make games. And this is a long time ago now. I've been doing this for nearly 20 years. I really just wanted to make entertainment. When I was starting out, I was probably thinking I was going to make animation, maybe more like film, and I studied fine art and learned how to draw and animate. And I was playing a lot of video games. And at some point, someone who I was playing video games with was like, "You should do this," and I just went. Like, yeah, people make these things. That's right. This is possible. And since that point, that just sort of became my focus. It was quite hard to get into video games. At that point, I'd never met anyone who made video games. I lived in Australia. It wasn't exactly like what you think of as the hub of where all the video games were being made at that point. There definitely were studios here. I just didn't know about them. So I went and taught myself how to program. So I got a computer science degree, and I'm going to make games. And I sort of thought that I'd be more hands on. To be honest, I thought I'd be maybe like a technical artist or something with my art and my programming. And I started in QA because that was like the entry level job that
Sure.
I could
Yeah,
get.
of course.
And the first game that I worked on was Test Drive Unlimited for PSP and Xbox 360 and PS2, I think. So just playing thousands of hours of that game.
Sure. Yeah.
And watching it evolve and learning how it changed and how the development team were making changes, making it better, how information sort of moved between teams, and how it eventually, got released, marketed, taken to audience, and seeing it on the shelf and going, "Oh my gosh, I made that!"
Yeah.
So yeah, and from that, I pretty much was straight away put into production. I didn't even know what a producer was. I had to actually ask when I was offered the job, like, what does that
Okay, well, that's a good
mean?
start.
There was just recognition from the team that I was able to organize people towards a mission.
Sure.
And so that became my role, even though it wasn't a deliberate move. That's sort of how I came into leadership. Through my career, I've led projects where I'm sort of, maybe it'd be called a director, where you're sort of taking over what is this project going to be, and making sure that people understand its sort of design direction and doing actual design, and defining what the game's going to be, making sure it stays on track. And then I've done people leadership, which is making sure that the people in the team are looked after and have what they need, and are communicating well. And I see those things as quite different. Some people can do both, but I really do see looking after people and looking after a product as two distinct roles. That's sort of how I ended up in in this space.
Yeah.
Found that that's where I'm most useful in the process. I love games. I love the design of games and everything that goes into considering all the small bits and pieces that maybe the players don't even understand. That's why they're
Of
enjoying this
course.
moment.
That's the point of this show, is
Yeah,
to talk about that. Yeah,
yeah, and I think particularly in the kinds of games that we make in arcade games, it's usually those things that make the game, where it's
of course.
invisible.
Yeah,
Like you don't realize that why you're having so much fun is because we spent so long like on just how you turn that corner, and the way that it feels. A lot of my job is unblocking other people being able to do their roles really
interesting.
well, um, and also being in my role as CEO now, being looking out for icebergs as well. Like I'm
Ah,
in the
gotcha.
front of the ship, going like, "Oh, we should be doing this or that, or here are opportunities, or here's something we should be, like looking out for, or yeah." And just the day-to-day things of, you've got a whole bunch of people who are all massively motivated and they want to do the best job and with so passionate. How do we keep that going and keep them feeling like they're able to do all the things that they want to do in the role that they have, and that they're working well with each other, and that we're making good teams that can really just run at the problems, and so that they're working on the game and able to focus on, like, it's really hard to make games. I'm sure that's a common
Yeah,
theme
yeah,
of what you're talking about. It's hard enough just to make the game sing and to do all the things that you need to do to really pull it together. It's a really uphill battle. And then if you can remove like the intrapersonal, any sort of nonsense there, if you can just make it like we know how to work as a team, we respect each other. I'm not worried about, like, do these people like me or am I in trouble? Or, like, if you can remove as much of that as possible and you just focus on we're making a game, we're going to make it great. That is magic to me. Like that's the stuff that like that's ideal. Yeah.
yeah. And well, it's exciting that you have hands-on experience from the sort of smallest side of the game development process, which is QA. You started there. That was your entry point, and then you've now you're leading the teams. You're choosing the projects. You're doing the highest level business communication.
Yeah.
And so we're going to be able to cover quite a bit of ground here. But I do want to start even before that with you talking about some of the games that might have inspired you to be a designer yourself when you were younger and you were trying to get into the industry. What were the games that you were playing? You said you were playing some with friends that were like, maybe people have made this and maybe I can do it.
Yeah, I think gosh, like I love games so broadly. But the ones that I think at that point in time were really grabbing me were some of the not quite art house, but like the games catalog that Sony was doing at that time, like Parappa the Rapper and Katamari, and sort of like real sort of cultural.
Those are some of my favorites. So you're pulling the right strings for
Yeah,
me.
I was never really sort of connected with Halo or any of that sort of
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
culture, but these, really arty games that were also mechanically really great and were commercial. Like they're not where I'm saying they're arty. They're really part of pop culture and really at the front end of where pop culture is, and that was really super enjoyable to see in games that I loved, that sort of pop culture and games coming together. And I love both of these things. And so at that point where I was seeing street culture and fashion and everything that I loved there combined with the game mechanics that I loved that had maybe always been themed a little different, that just sung to me. And so I think it was actually Parappa the Rapper I was playing when that person went like, you should make these.
Sure. Yeah, that's fun. Very fun, yeah. And now we talked about a little bit of your history getting into the industry, but let's talk about you coming to Crossy Road specifically frankly, the game that has defined your life and your career.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
But tell me about the first time found the game, what you thought that first time, and sort of to you, what made it unique and special in a very saturated mobile game market. What made that game stand out to you as something that you pursued further to be involved with?
I saw it before it launched. So I knew the developers of the game, Matt and Andy, and I was working in a role at the time where I was doing investment management for government. Actually, I was investing in the games industry. So I was seeing a lot of games. That is how I met them. And I had seen Crossy Road in development, but I actually, like Matt and I were trying to remember, like, when did I see it? We can't quite remember
Hmm.
what the
Sure.
circumstances were. And then I was chatting to Matt about something else, and I remember just going, "What's happening with that game? Like, where is that?" And he said, "Yeah, people like that one." And so that was my first interaction. Was it was before it was on the store. I saw it, and man, this has some of that magic. You know, you sometimes see projects where you just go, "Yeah, that's coming. That's bubbling up to top of mind again. Like, what? Show me that again. Keep me updated." So my first time seeing it, it wasn't a thing yet.
Sure. Okay. You weren't jumping on the bandwagon. You were in before it was
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, exactly. Could I have predicted that it was going to do what it did? No. No. I probably would have jumped on the bandwagon earlier, right? The next time I saw it was after it had launched. I did see when they launched it, and there, it was like, "Oh, please, like my game." And then probably a few months later, it was everywhere. It was a big hit. It was at the very top of the stores. Seeing that for people that for a game that you've seen sort of in its pre-release evolution is really exciting when you
Sure.
go out and you go, yeah, it's taking off, it's exploding. So and I think at the time I probably didn't quite appreciate the scale of it even.
Mm. Yeah, you want to expound on that a little bit? What do you mean by scale of Crossy Road?
I was seeing it be really successful, and I was seeing it, like, oh my gosh, it's on a billboard. Wow. I don't think that the actual reach of the game was clear to me at that time. Like,
Yeah,
hundreds of millions of players, and just how much it would become, a family brand, like a thing that you can say to an 8-year-old if you played Crossy Road, and they'll be like, oh yeah, like, I know what you're talking about.
yeah.
In most parts of the world, and that's a rare and special thing.
No, definitely. And what has allowed it to exist for 10 years, still available on the App Store, still getting updates, still being the main thing that is funding your team, your company, your career, is that you have microtransactions, you have updates, you have skins that are released. And what goes into making a content roadmap for a free-to-play game like Crossy Road that mostly focuses on cosmetics and skins? And through all your research and your years working on this, how often have you found you need to be updating the game in order to keep players returning over the course of years?
I suppose because we've got a 10-year-old game, we've got a real mix of players. We've got people who are coming in the door for the first time, and they've got
Yeah, of course.
just so much content. And then we've got people who've been with us for 10 years who are eagerly awaiting every new thing that we pop in the
Cool.
game. So
Yeah.
we've got all kinds of different ways we think about how we're releasing content and who it's for, and whether it's for people who are at this part of their journey or this part of their journey. At the end of the day, I think the same thing at the beginning is what we're trying to do now, which is to entertain people. And what our audience really wants is to have a good laugh and find the secrets we put in and, see that we see them. So we're often in the content that we make actually just trying to make each other laugh. And
Oh, fun. Yeah.
yeah, seriously, like when we make a lot of characters and a lot of, worlds, and then we throw most of them out, they didn't quite make it. When I can see the team laughing and showing each other, and everyone's sort of like, "Oh, come around this screen and look at that."
Yeah.
When we're like, "Yeah, cool, this one will be popular, and people will like it." And then it gives like the marketing team a better story to work with as well. They can have more fun with the audience with it, and it's that surprise and delight where we try and put in a surprise for people. And I always Crossy Road is a simple game, and it's not asking too much of your time. It is a light touch piece of entertainment, and so I'm always just hopeful that when people do have that interaction with Crossy Road, that they're like, huh, like they get that laugh, they get that, like, that was a good use of my time. I feel
Sure.
entertained, like my day is better because of that. Like that's always what we're going for, and that's kind of like the promise of the brand that we have to keep delivering on. So
Yeah, and there are a lot of skins, there are a lot of hidden characters and fun things that you can sort of find in the game and have been added and added and added over the course of so many years. Do you have any that jump to mind as like particular surprises or particularly funny ones that you're like, that was clever, I'm glad we added that. That was something the team had a good time coming up with?
We had one recently that was long chicken, which was actually a developer joke that one of our artists just stretched the neck of the chicken really long
Oh,
while
okay.
she was working on it, and we all looked at it and went, you know, like we had that developer laugh where we all went, "That's really funny." And then it made it into the game because we were like, everyone should see this. This is funny. And like we had to go like, can we make the neck really wobble as it walks along?
Oh,
So
fun.
that was
Yeah.
I really like that character. And we for April Fools last year we sort of switched the cars and the chickens. So you play as a car and all the chickens are coming at you. So you
Oh,
know,
yeah.
just yeah, like it's often it's sort of a twist on the thing that you know.
Yeah, do you guys usually try to do something for April Fools, or is that just like a one-off thing where you're like, yeah, that's kind of goofy?
We try to get something ready for April Fools. Yeah.
Cool, yeah. And a lot of the skins in the game are collaborations with other creators' IPs and other long-standing pop culture brands. You mentioned your personal passion for pop culture, and so what goes into actually getting like the rights for someone else's character, putting it in the game, designing it, the back and forth communication with them, making sure you're doing it justice, having fun, like making sure it's something your audience would like. I'm sure that's a relatively complicated process, but you've done so much of it. I'm sure you guys are pretty good at it now.
Yeah, yeah. Probably the first time you encounter one of those things, it feels like a lot. And I can definitely see when people come into the team who've never worked on brand collaborations, they're like, oh gosh, you have to do all of these things to make this happen. We love them, and our audience really loves them if we get the brand collaboration right. If it's something that our audience really is excited about and we can do it justice and really like show you like, oh no, we love this brand too, and really show it in the game, then it's a win for everyone. Like on the practical side of it though, yeah, obviously there's it has to be a connection made between these brands. So whether it's just that we know that developer and we have that chat and go, we think this is going to be a good, fit between our audiences, and we think we can do something really fun together. That's often how it starts, but sometimes it's more formal, where it's like a big brand that you don't actually have a connection with, but there's a business outreach. And then obviously like the commercial terms of how will this work, and is anyone paying anyone, or is it sort of just a swap between brands. So it can happen any which way, and I'd say we've had all of those all of those
Yeah, of course.
versions. But how we make a decision about whether it's a good fit is a little bit like, is our team excited to work on it? Do we feel like we can really do the things in that brand that make people excited? Is there a good fit with Crossy Road or whichever game we're popping it into? Is this something our audience really wants? Is this a brand that they also will go like, oh, I love that? And they'll be so excited to see that, two things that they love come together and know each other and, like do each other honor. Yeah. And then the process is often back and forth of like, here's what we're going to do. Here's assets. Here's how your brand will look in our brand. Our style is so abstract that sometimes there are brands that we'd like to do a collaboration with, but we're like, we don't know that it will look right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Everything you do is a circle. We don't have circles in our game.
Sure. Good point. Yeah.
If you need spheres, I'm so sorry. Yeah, or if faces are really important, faces are really just a block, or very abstract. So there are some things that maybe are not a fit with our brand, and we just have to say no, it's not going to work. It's also really fun for the dev team. Like it's really fun for the dev team because they often also love this game that we're doing a collaboration with. So it's exciting to meet other developers. It's exciting to work with a new brand that and work with it and release it to the audience we have. So
Yeah. And on the personal connection side, are there any brands, pop culture things that you were a big fan of that you then pushed to make sure, like, hey,
yeah,
we got to get this in the game and that we're excited about getting in there?
yeah, Katamari's in there.
Oh, yes. Yeah. That was very exciting for me when I learned that that was a thing. I'm like, oh my God, someone else cares. It's not just me.
No, because we were working with Bandai on Pac-Man 256. We already had that, connection there, and so I was like, "Ooh, Can I please? This is a heart game for me. Yeah, so that was really fun. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. Each of these crossovers, these collaborations, is sort of a chance to market the game to a new audience that is a fan of that brand, and then your game becomes sort of something that's entering their sphere. And with the game existing for so long and having so many different collaborations, do you find that the game sort of ultimately markets itself? Like it's kind of a cultural phenomenon, and at a certain point, like a lot of people just like, oh yeah, that's one of the mobile games. Like you don't really need to think about it, but how much effort goes into continually marketing a game that's been
Oh,
around for so long and has such a deep level of saturation just in the mobile game market in general? Does the game sort of market itself, or do you still find it a challenge to continually make sure you're marketing it?
both is the answer. Yeah, you're right. It is one of the like evergreen mobile arcade titles. So we have that and we have to make the most of it. So a lot of the times, even when we are advertising, we're talking to people who already know about it, and it might be like, remember us and come back and play because we've got, something new for you. So it definitely is both. We make the most out of the organic, marketing that we can get and just the brand knowledge that we can get. That's incredibly valuable. I probably don't have to tell you how valuable, because advertising is so expensive. But it has to be paired with marketing and with both like brand and product marketing, more traditional marketing, and making sure that we're really talking to the people who are engaging with us and that it's really fun for them. Paid advertising in the mix as well, and looking for where that makes sense. And I'd say for everyone in games, probably doesn't matter mobile or not, like working out how to make that make sense over the past few years has been, is an ongoing challenge.
Yeah. Well, I mean, your game has survived a lot of ups and downs and changes in the mobile market, and it's been ported to other things. And again, you said it's kind of evergreen. I think that's a great word to describe it. But the mobile game market has changed quite a bit. And so being sort of in the trenches, like you see all the statistics, you are very familiar with like the App Store and the Google Play and all of this stuff. How do you think the mobile game market has changed in 10 years since this game launched? Is there any major trends that you've noticed that you've kind of had to adapt to with the team, or something that you've got to like changes the way you're thinking about approaching the next games you design, or even Crossroad itself?
I think it's sort of the double-edged sword of our industry. Like I love it that it's always changing. Everything's always changing and it's never boring. But man, it's tiring. Like, it's just relentless. What worked yesterday won't work tomorrow. And I guess part of my role as CEO is to instill that in the team as what we expect, is that what we were doing yesterday is not what we should necessarily do tomorrow. That what we're trying to do is make the best entertainment and make it where people are and how they want to play. And we have to keep moving. And I think like spending a long time in this industry, you get a better sense of that because you see platforms change, you see trends come and go, and all of these things are opportunities. There are opportunities for new things to come. There are opportunities for old things to go, and you have to find where you're going to fit in all of that, and you have to recognize when some opportunities are shrinking. You've got to look for where they're growing. Yeah, without being too much like old man shakes a cloud about what's changed in the industry.
Yeah.
I do feel a little bit like, am I being old and grumpy and going, it's a lot more complicated now than it used to be. Like it feels like it was simpler when I started. And I think it was. I think that the options were less. I think that the way that games were made, who could make them, and how they were released, there were less options. And so that was simpler. You kind of were like, well, I'm going to make a game, therefore I'm going to do this. I need a publisher, and these are the platforms, and I probably don't have too much control over that. There were no engines you could just use like Unity or Epic or anything like that. Like there was nothing like that existed. Now I think we're seeing that obviously there's just so much content, so many platforms. To make a game and release it directly to an audience is easier than ever. But to actually get a hold of an audience and to get some space for people to find you is harder than ever. And the difference between platforms is really becoming fuzzy. Like mobile and console used to be very different. Now we've got lots of crossover and PC as
Sure. Yeah.
well, and web, and where are people playing, and are they actually playing a console game on their mobile now? And like I think that's all blurring. And are they paying for a game? Are they paying a subscription and they're part of this ecosystem, or are they playing free? So the options are wildly more complicated, I would say, and just I think there can be some decision paralysis problems that people face
Sure.
now. We're like, what am I going to
Mm-hmm.
do? Where am I going to focus? Where's my audience? How do I reach them? Do I have to do everything? The mix has changed, but fundamentally, we're still trying to entertain people
Yeah, of course.
and find our
Yeah.
audience and get that entertainment to them.
And for me, as someone who's very interested in the industry, and I like to follow as many trends and understand the history as much as I can, the mobile market is something that I was a lot more connected to when I was younger. And for me, the primary way that I was playing games was downloading them on a phone or an iPad. And so I played a lot of Crossy Road, I played a lot of Flappy Bird, Temple Run, Jetpack Joyride, all of these games that have been around for a long time. As I've grown up, I've personally distanced myself a little bit away from that. I play a solid amount of games on my phone, but not a ton. And one thing that even me, as sort of an outsider to that market mainly, that I've noticed a change is a lot of mobile game advertising for games that don't look particularly high quality. And I think that that has certainly hurt the reputation of the mobile game industry, is these game ads
Mm,
that people say look fake, or they sometimes literally are fake. They're just there for people
yes.
to tap, and then you go to a store and it's just something completely different. And I'm wondering how those fake mobile game ads that to me seem very prevalent and very much a shift in the mobile game, especially advertising area, how has that impacted your team? Has it changed the way that you guys have had to approach marketing? Has it sort of soured any people's experience with the mobile game industry? Have you had to respond to that in any way?
Yeah, ad quality. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yes, it's something that I think the whole industry has to deal with. It's part of that noise as well. I think that noise factor of and trust, like player trust, and how do you communicate quality? We're in this game for the long term. We're not thinking, can I get you into this thing right now and then get you out? For us, we're like, we want you for 10 years. We want you to love our brand. We want you to come back. We want you to play our next game. So when we're making decisions about how we talk to our audience and how we advertise, those are not appropriate for us because we want you to think about us in a positive light for a long
Yeah, yeah, of
time.
course. Hmm.
But when you're up against what often is essentially clickbait, right?
Yes, definitely.
That's what that's what you're sort of competing with, even when you're looking to advertise. Yeah, it makes it really, really hard. You've got all kinds of companies and all kinds of games, and even some of the games that it's a great game, but their advertising is really,
Yeah.
thinking different from how we're thinking about it. It's massively complicated and trying to work out where you'll fit in that. And I think us as again, like as that evergreen brand where we're sort of thinking more long term and we're thinking quality brand association, we kind of don't wade into some of those spaces. But yeah, as an industry and just how people perceive the market, and I don't know that it's just a mobile problem.
Sure. No, that's a
It's
good point.
certainly
Yeah.
most out there, but I think in general, just what am I seeing? Will it actually lead to what I think it will? Like this is an advertising problem, not just a games problem. Is there any guarantee that what I'm seeing here will be where I actually land? And is there that same value? And what story are you taking me on? And
Yeah. Well, at a certain point, all you can do is make sure your team is putting out trustworthy ads and is delivering on their project and making your customer base happy, because you're not in control of this other people that are making clickbaity ads that don't look very high quality, but that a lot of people fall for. So, it's just you exist in a market that is a lot of other people other than yourself. And so
yeah,
it's just something you got to fight.
yeah,
You talked about these issues being part of the larger industry and also your game being a big part of the mobile market, but the mobile market and the console space, the PC space, these things are all starting to be intertwined. And so, how do you see the mobile space as a bigger part of the game's ecosystem? Do you have a lot of like give and take with console developers, with PC? Do you have connections personally with console development teams, PC development teams? What's all that sort of connection like between the different spheres of the games industry?
We also have released console games. So,
Sure. Yeah.
yeah, again, I keep bringing it back to this really simple principle of what we do is entertainment for people. And so I think each platform, when you make for a platform, you're thinking about how they interact with that platform. So for mobile, it's a very different thing that someone wants with this device in their hand. And if it's got like a big touch screen on it versus when we started doing mobile, where it was just buttons and a tiny screen, we've evolved to work with how people want to interact with that device. And even on PC, I'm seeing a lot more sort of bite-sized gaming, which has a lot in common with what mobile gaming often is, which is, can I play it on my train ride? Can I get this, just do that sort of promise of just one more run? And I'm seeing more and more PC games that sort of fit that space too. Even like the structure and the meta flow of our games, we borrow a lot of things from what we see in console games, and we see console games borrowing a lot from what mobile are doing. And the audiences are the one audience often. They're playing all of these things, right? And they see it's not two completely separate groups of people.
Yeah. Sure.
They have similar expectations, and they are learning on this platform and expecting it on that platform. The way that we think about platforms is really what is the best version of our game for this platform and how people want to play. Do they want to sit down and have a longer session because they've got controllers in their hands and they've turned on a console, so they've come with this intention to have this longer session, versus I've maybe just remembered about this app between me doing something more serious on my phone. So I think most of us at the studio have probably worked on console games, PC games, and most platforms. So we bring all of that knowledge when we work between different platforms. I think a lot of that information and the sort of tool set and design thinking crosses over quite a lot. And I'm seeing that so much in like the console games and PC games that I play as well. There's so much similarity. That
Sure. Yeah.
there wasn't that similarity maybe 5 years ago, definitely 10 years ago. The
Okay.
way that monetization in particular worked was so different, and they're really much more similar now.
Sure. Yeah. And in the last 5 years, you're talking about these games that have really grabbed you. Do you have any examples of things that you've really sunk a lot of time into, maybe embarrassingly so?
Oh gosh, yeah, I'm sure I do. I mean, I've got like the usual culprits at the moment. I think I lost a lot of time to Vampire Survivors.
Sure.
Like Overwatch, I played a lot of because I would play it with, friends and family. I've just started playing at Luck Be a Landlord on Steam. I'm really enjoying
I actually haven't heard of that. I'll
yeah,
have to look that one up.
it's got me. Obra Dinn,
Oh, great
I
game.
fell in
Yeah.
love with that game, played it straight through. And I think that's like when I know that I'm really hooked, because I played heaps of games for just like, what is this? And what are they doing?
Hmm.
Research.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then when I just keep playing, I can't stop. That's, it's got me. I'm a big RTS fan, so basically my default game is Civilization. I always go back
Sure.
to like
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
that's my comfort game, which again I think says something about someone who works in sort of like strategy and leadership.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah. People management.
Yeah, exactly.
In a literal sense in Civilization.
Yeah. So I've always loved Civilization, and Age of Empires and StarCraft and those games. I've never been competitive or great at them, but I just really love them. I love all these games. I'm not great at games, and I think that also helps me in working at a studio where we're talking to a broader, more casual audience as well as a hardcore audience. I am often a reminder to people that not everyone's good at games. and
Sure.
they
Yeah.
still enjoy games. I just don't have the time to become like super brilliant at the games that I love. Like in Overwatch, I was never ranked very well, but I had a great time. And it wasn't really important to me to rank well. That kind of play is still really valuable. And yeah, I think that stays an important thing at Hipster Whale as well, because we talk to such a broad audience that it's always about making it really easy to play and then hard to master. But you should still be having heaps of fun at that just easy to play level.
Yeah, and the final thing that I want to ask is about sort of project management at Hipster Whale, which is a team that has a game that you guys have been working on for a decade, as we've mentioned many times throughout this, and continually have to revisit and update and make sure that you're keeping that alive, because that's kind of the beating heart of the company, really. But you do have other projects, you do branch out into other games, and so as CEO making these decisions of where resources should go, where talent should go, how do you decide to balance between like making sure you're keeping Crossy Road a supported thing that's going to keep the studio going, but then diverting personnel onto other projects that then can keep you sort of a fresh injection of new ideas and blood?
Well, like I said earlier, we're a team of very passionate creators, and I have to keep them fed. I have to
Sure.
keep them creatively engaged and make sure that they all are really feeling like they can, flex their creative muscle. And sometimes when you're working on the same game for a really long time, you need to just try something else every now and again, or have, things where we make sure that we can rotate people in and out of things. And so we did a game jam at the start of this year where
Oh,
the whole
wow.
team sort of pens down on everything, and we made space for that. And those are really important at the studio, to have times where we do that and everyone can just bring those sideways ideas that have been there and they want to work on it, but it's hard to find the time during day to day. So we make space for that. And we got a bunch of awesome games out of it, but also the team was energized by it, and people who maybe are working on different things got to work together, and yeah, it just sort of mixes things up. We have 6 projects, I think. I might get that wrong, but I think 6 projects that are live right now that we're
Wow.
working on.
Okay.
So yeah, and you
That's
think
crazy.
about all the platforms that we're across as well. 'Cause
Sure.
mobile is like 1,000 platforms. So
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
yeah, and then Samsung just goes like, "Hey, we're going to make a flip phone," and you're like, "What?"
How you got to work on that? Yeah, that's very interesting.
We're not short of things to do, or platforms that we're supporting, or places that we are. But yeah, like last year we put one of our games out across consoles. That was really enjoyable for the team, who some have had recent console experience, and so they're like, "Oh, great, I know all the things to do here." And some it's been like, "Oh, I haven't worked on console for 5 years or more." So that was a really fun one for the team. And we had a game that was really suited to it, with Crossy Road Castle. Yeah, again, it comes down a little bit to, we're entertaining people. We have this team who want to make entertainment, and we do a lot of experimenting with new mechanics, with new game types, and sometimes it's just about finding or waiting for the right actual release plan for a project. It might be that we even have something and we are like not quite sure what to do with it, but then a new platform comes out and we can be, there you go, that's where that can go. We do pull these things into Crossy Road as well. Like there are sort of like games within Crossy Road. Some of the characters are almost like a new game. It's a different mechanic. Sometimes we can put these things into the games that we have, or make it a mini game, maybe make an event around it. It runs for, maybe doesn't run forever, but we make it fun for our players for a few months or something, where we go, you can play like this now. We can always inject the games that we have with the new things that we make and discover. Do you make a new game? It's a big decision, and
That's true. Yeah.
there's a lot of honestly, like, I think you never know. And we released collaboration games where we're in partnership with someone, like with Pac-Man, with Disney Crossy Road. We've got with Apple Arcade. another one at the moment that's in development, wildly in development. Can't say too much, but it's really exciting. And I think it's really important for our studio that those things are there because it keeps us really excited. And, our audience as well wants to see new stuff from us and see those other games. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate your insight. And so the final thing I want to ask is just kind of a general question. If someone wants to be a team leader, if they want to be a game developer sort of at this high level, is there any like specific thing that you might have like messed up along the way that you want to kind of teach to other people? Like, make sure you don't screw this up. Here's a big tip for you.
Oh, God.
That's a lot of pressure. I know.
The
You can take a
list
second to
of
think about
things
it.
I've stuffed up to learn is long. I think for me, leadership is something that can be done so many ways. I think you need a certain level of confidence built in order to honestly, in order to know that you don't know everything and to be confident in that and to be okay with that. That actually is what gives me a lot of confidence in people and what I see in the senior people that I work with and other business leaders that I know, respect, and sort of trust is that they don't have all the answers and that they're comfortable with that and that they know that that's part of what we do is work with uncertainty and try and remove risk, get more certain by experimentation, by doing, by trying things out, removing the things that don't work, continuing the things that do. And that a role of leadership is not to have all the answers, it's to collaborate, it's to find out and help the team work out what's the next best thing for us to do in getting closer to where we're trying to go and having clear goals. But it's not about having all the answers and telling everyone what to do, which I'd say people trying out leadership for the first time maybe misunderstand that.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that you learn just being in the trenches and doing this for so long. And
Yeah, I know nothing. That's the most important thing I know.
yeah. And it sounds like you've learned some answers over the course
Yeah.
of years, and of course, you've got more to learn going in the future. But as more people play Crossy Road, as you put out more projects, I want everyone watching this, keep an eye on Hipster Whale, even if you're part of my audience who's not traditionally a mobile game fan who might have only played Crossy Road in the past. Like, go check it out again. It's always good to inject a little bit of variety into your game playing diet, just mess around with a little something fun like that, and keep an eye for future projects coming from Hipster Whale in the future. Clara, thank you very much for joining me, for shedding a little light on the CEO process, something that I haven't had a chance to talk about here on this show yet, but I really appreciate it, and thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you.